Welcome to the Finding the Magic podcast, where books come alive. I'm Tricia Copeland, a fiction author and host of this show. If you love books, finding great reads, and hearing about the story behind the story directly from the authors, this is the place for you. Whether you like fantasy, science fiction, dystopian, or romance titles, I think you'll find something to love in my playlist. Listen in to discover something magical about a book or two today. Welcome, Megan.
Hi, Tricia. Thanks for having me.
Well, thank you for being here today. We have author M. Wall. She is a young adult, right? Fantasy author?
It's actually science fiction, and it is young adult. Yeah, young adult with parental supervision.
Okay.
It's probably my preferred methodology.
Okay. With parental supervision, interesting. Do the characters in the books have parental supervision? Or does the reader need parental supervision?
The reader in the book, the readers need parental supervision. I'll add a little context to that. I started reading very advanced books at a very young age. And so that's one of those, if kids can handle it, I think it's fine. If they're able to delineate, I'm reading a curse word, I probably shouldn't repeat it. And again, I think that parents, I think kids over the age of 16, they're fine. There's not going to be any problems. I don't have too much triggering stuff in there aside from, I think it's veterans that I would be most worried about, in all honesty.
Okay. So dive in. The name of the series is Shattered Hollow series. And tell us the world, tell us the characters. What are we going to find?
Okay, well, so Shattered Hollows, the entire series takes place about 6,000 years in the future. It is speculative fiction, and it is very science fiction with a lot of, I feel, fantasy elements woven into it. So such as just kind of the magic constructs that we've got. They are very science-based, but sometimes you just have to have some magical thinking to make it okay. So it is, it's dystopian in a lot of ways. In fact, probably, I think it would be easy to classify as dystopian. I think it would be easy to classify as like a space epic. You can even classify it as a romance. So there's a lot of different elements that I hit in mine. I don't really stick to one genre completely, because I feel that my characters are multifaceted, and that means that they have all of those things woven into them. So the setting is science fiction, but I do feel that a lot of the plot devices that are in there are different. They're fantasy, they're romance, they're dystopian, definitely. So a lot of genetic alteration happening.
Ooh, that piques my interest. My background is microbiology and genetics. So I love when books have genetic elements to them. So tell us about the main characters and some of their challenges.
Okay. So just kind of a setup for our main character. Her name is Thora. At the beginning of the series, her name is Thora. She does change her name at one point. And so that's my female that's on the cover here. And you'll notice that she's pretty dark. And that is because I didn't want her skin tone to be something that anybody could really figure out. So at any rate, Thora is part of a portion of humanity that is called the tribes. And so the way I've kind of set up the political structure is that we have corporate technocracies. So we have corporate governments, and then we have everyone else. And they've all kind of come together to create a large enclave of representatives for basically the rest of humanity, is the way that they almost couch themselves. Within the tribes, there is a lot of control. It's actually in basically everywhere. There's a lot of control over genetics and who is allowed to breed and why they shouldn't. So the idea being that there are advanced genetic markers in people, and when certain people get together and have babies, their children are incredibly well endowed with powers and abilities. And that's basically, it's all based on genetics and mechanical components that have been put into the DNA and the RNA factors. So sorry if I go a little too deep into the science, because I did a lot of research for it. So being allowed to talk about it, I'm like, oh, score. So as it progresses, so from the beginning, we established that females are not the main product of breeding programs. We don't want females because they are very difficult to control. Mostly it's just an attitude thing, first of all. And then the second part of it is that women are more likely to have just kind of like uncontrolled bursts of power. And this is just kind of a random thing that can happen. And they decide to base their entire society on this one possible risk factor. So when Thora is born, she's actually illegally created. So, but her dad finds out that she exists. So he goes and claims her and protects her. And the only way to keep her safe is to put her into one of the only accepted formats for somebody to be powerful. And that is a priesthood. It's all male. And so she's taken into this priesthood because she has to be in service of the government for them to allow her to survive. And that's the beginning of her story, is her coming into this new world. She's been raised by her mother. Her mother was kidnapped by this breeding program. And so I have a very nice like preamble that builds up and sets the idea behind why she even exists. And so from there, we have a woman that is attempting to integrate herself into this all male priesthood. And they're actually very welcoming of her. But that is the start of her story. She ends up eventually finding out that there are powers within her world that want to literally take control of people, especially people with enhanced genetics, by using those mechanical signatures as like a hack in point, so that they can literally hack someone's bodies and then have a really powerful tool that can't control itself. So now we have the rise of what I would call autocracy or fascism at like its most in-depth possible in way. And then we have people that are genetically predisposed, but also highly limited politically. So now we have to find a way to give her the power that she needs in order to fight this incoming technology that might actually be able to enslave people that are not genetically enhanced, because mechanical RNA markers are a part of everyone's genetics by this point. Just the advanced ones are very selective. They have upgrade suites and things of that nature. So at any rate, I feel like I'm all over the place, and that is because there's a lot of detail that goes into it. And it's all put there by dialogue. I am not a fan of the info dump. They do occasionally happen because you've got to, but I don't like it. So I don't tend to write it.
I don't think most of us like the info dumps. And as authors, we're like, okay, how do we get this across so that it's not all at one time? How do you show the audience, not tell them and dump them? And what kind of scenes and predicaments can we put our characters in that you learn these little tidbits along and along, but you learn them when you need to learn them and not too much time goes by, and all those little things, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And largely it's also just trusting your readers, like just being like, okay, if you're reading a speculative fiction that's science fiction based, you're probably not a dummy. You probably have the capability to pick up on context. And even if you don't, thank you for purchasing my book, and give it to somebody that will appreciate it, pretty please. So I do think that that's a big one for me, is I really put a lot of trust and faith in my readers to be able to put the pieces together.
Well, and you want something that makes people think and makes people like kind of want to put the pieces together and work at it a little bit. I mean, when I'm reading something, I don't want it dumbed down that much. It's funny, I was in a screenwriting class and I was writing about my witches and my vampires, and they were like, wait a minute, we don't even know what witches and vampires can do. I'm like, are you not into like really current culture? Because I mean, vampires and witches are pretty basic by now. So.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like we've got a very good understanding of those things. I do understand, like, if you're doing like Japanese vampires, right? Because those are real different. So, but otherwise, yeah, I think if we're going with kind of what would that be? Like a collective, it's a collective fairy tale, right?
Right, a collective
Yeah. So
knowledge base,
yeah,
right? Yes. So,
yeah, exactly.
well, fun. So, Thora, so you have two books out, right?
That's right.
So,
That's
what is
right.
the
So the
title of the
first,
first and the second?
okay, so the first book is called Strength to Bind, and I think it's backwards on here, but it's Strength to Bind, and the second one is called Entangled Binds. And I did have a friend point out to me, she's like, that's got kind of a vibe to it when you use the word bind, right? And I was like, oh no. Um, that's hysterical to me. I thought it was so funny when she said it. I was like, I'm leaving it. This is amazing. So if I get people that are expecting something very different, oops, also you're welcome. Um, but using the term bind and bond is meant to be like on an atomic scale. So we're using like actual atomic bindings and entanglement to create this magic world, if you will. But at any rate, I do apologize to the people that come to my series thinking that it's something a little bit more risque. There's definitely romance in it. We pop into that in book two. My secondary main character is a gentleman named Arik. We do flip back and forth, especially in the first book, between their perspectives. And he is so she's from the tribes, he's from SAB, he's from the corporate world, and has also been bred to be like kind of this elite slave, if you will. And they're really slaves. They kind of discover that and talk about it slowly over the book, but it's not really a secret that these people that are really well enhanced, they don't get to choose when they have kids. They don't get to choose what their job's going to be. That it's a pretty raw form of slavery to me.
Yeah, that's hard, but it's so cool that you've written like I wrote like a dystopian fiction that was like two generations, so like 60 years in the future. Not even, maybe it's 40. But anyway, I'm like, what was that? But 6,000 years in the future, I don't know that my mind could even wrap itself around. Like, that seems so interesting. And it sounds like you put a lot of research into, like, okay, what is the current technology? What could be in 6,000 years from now? And
yes, I did a lot of that.
Yeah. Are computers really integrated in this too? Or are people hybrid, or are they just completely biological?
That's actually a read and find out moment.
Okay.
But they also use AI still. And they actually talk about how careful they are with the restrictions because they've already messed around and found out. So one of the things that I did was I made sure to set this after a period of warfare. Because that really does give us a lot of clean slates, right? We've got cities that have been toppled. We have a recovering economy. We have recovery happening. That means that we are still kind of redefining what everything looks like. And I think one of my favorite lines, I can't remember if it's in the first or the second book. I think it's the first one, is where one of the seers tells Thora, we're called seers for a reason. It's because all we can do is see what's going to happen. Nobody can even agree on what's happened in the past. So why are we worried about it? And I really just had that moment where I was like, that's so true, because we can't even agree on what history is now. Like, especially when we even have like these colloquialisms like, the victor gets to write the history books. So that automatically tells you like, that's not really the truth of the matter, is it now? Because whoever's writing is going to say that they're the hero of the story, because obviously.
Neat. Well, so what gave you the idea for these books?
So 10 years ago, I'll kind of give a little bit too much explanation. You can edit out if you'd like. About 10 years ago, I had been talking with, I can't even remember who it was. He was an established author. About science fiction. And I was upset with this gentleman. I'm not going to, like, even if I remember who it was, I will not be like revealing the name. But he said something to the effect of, women writing science fiction is really difficult. You're going to want to break in through the romance genre first. And I was like, okay. So I sat down and I tried to write a romance novel. Absolute failure. I wrote an amazing romance that ended up turning into a murder mystery where like one of the main characters died because it was more interesting to me. So it was just, I can write romance, but I can't write an entire story based on romance. To me, it's like, that's a short book to me. right? Oh, I like you. Oh, I like you. I have problems. Me too. Let's fix it. All right, now we can be together. Okay. It just kind of, for me, I'm like, that's a little too tried and true. I do prefer a little bit more of a slow burn, and I also prefer for it to be like a plot device that assists the rest of the plot going forward, because then it's more meaningful, I think. um so at any rate, when I realized I'm just not gonna be able to do this, like I'm not gonna be able to write romance, I went to my friend group and I asked for random prompts, just so I could try something new. And they know how I feel about training scenes, overdone training scenes in a book. Like I love training scenes in a movie because we can have an awesome like Rocky montage or something, but don't give me like, 12 chapters of pure training. I will fall asleep. Don't do that. And so of course, they were being brats and they gave me a training program in the middle of a swamp. And then I think they said like 7,000 or 4,000, like it was a couple thousand years in the future. And I just said, I hate you guys. Let me get started. And that the first scene I actually wrote is the very beginning of Entangled Vines. So Entangled Vines, book 2, was written 4 years before I ever came back and wrote the first book.
Oh,
Yeah, so I wrote books 2, 3, and 4, and then I came back and was like, I think this first book is important. And I had written all of these scenes, like all these flashback scenes for insertion into the rest of the books, and it just didn't read properly to me. I didn't like it. I didn't like because I like to switch perspectives and go from one character to another and kind of get a different feel for the room everybody's in. But then switching also time in that, it was just too complicated I felt I could do it well, but I wasn't really wanting to put that much of an onus on the reader. So that was when I was like, nah, F it. I'm just going to flesh it out and turn it into a book. And it ended up being so good that I was like, I don't hate this. So let's do this. Cause I had that moment where I was like, maybe I write a 3-book series. And then the 4th book, the prologue, is like part of the box set, No, I like it as it is on its own as a book. So I thought it was a really good way to start things off.
fun.
But that was how it started. And yeah. And I just kind of went from there.
Yes, and when I saw your name, M.A. Wall, you never, like, when it just comes across my desk, I never know whether him, her, male, female, whatever. So it's interesting. I never know which it's going to be. But a lot of times I do think, hey, this could be a woman writing as M.A. or initials, because a lot of, in the sci-fi, I think, and in the fantasy, maybe you don't want to say where you're male or female, just in case that's going to put somebody in a certain frame of mind as to whether they want to read your book or not, right? So yeah, I think it can be a good way to say, hey, this is not a female driven sci-fi or not a female driven fantasy or whatever it may be.
It also, whenever people know you're female and they start to read the book, it colors the way they read it. So if you say anything about men being weird, then a man reading it is like, she's sexist, I hate her. And it's like, nah, men are weird and they smell kind of funny sometimes. And other men would probably say that. And the same as, women are going to sit around and be like, our bathrooms are not that clean, man. Like we will call each other out on it. So I think it's fine to break that down. But if you go to the author page in the back of my book, it is a picture of myself and my husband. And I definitely wrote it without any gendering in the bio. So refer to myself as Wall. Wall joined the military. So it kind of like really helps with that entire, just don't worry about it, man. It's just a book, right? It doesn't matter what my body looks like when I'm writing it. What matters what my fingers are up to. So, and my brain. So that's all we've got to worry about. I do think that if people find me online, and they see I'm female, like they'll probably find things like podcasts or things that I've written as well, about my books. And that is that I'm not here to make a statement about men versus women versus anything else. It's more about just society and being human in general.
Well, that sounds like a lot of fun.
Sorry.
And you said, do you have a military background then?
I do. I do. I joined the military in early 2001. And I did not join because of what happened later in 2001. I do like to say that out of the gate. I joined for the college money. I was a civil affairs specialist, which is essentially just military negotiations, is what I normally say to civilians, even though it's quite a bit more than that. And the slogan for them is win the hearts and minds. So, yeah, and we work with we worked with PsyOps. So psychological operations and civil affairs, they actually work together. Everyone pays attention to the psychological operations, which they're secure the victory and we're win the hearts and minds. So it's kind of like, here, we're going to scare you. And now we're going to send in civil affairs to make you feel better. It's an interesting perspective. So yeah, I was in for 8 years. I got out a little bit early because they wanted me to work directly for my fiance. And I was like, that's not legal. It's like, we're getting married. He can't be my boss. That will get me dishonorably discharged. How about I'll just take the honorable discharge and take a walk? And I was a terrible soldier. So I do like to put that out there. Like, I was awful. I totally own how bad I am at that. I don't take orders well. I grew up in a military family. So when somebody wants me to do something, if they say please and thank you, I'm very willing. But I grew up with an infantry officer for a father. So anybody screaming in my face, I'm just, there's nothing. You're not scary.
So how do you think that shaped you writing these books too?
Intriguingly enough, it was my own relationship with my dad that kind of kept me from releasing my writing for a really long time. He said basically, like, literally, you're too smart, do anything but writing. You know, you don't deserve to be a starving artist, blah, blah, blah. He never really read my work though. So I did wait for a very long time because of that. I've always written, but I haven't written things that I was like, I will release this unto the world. No, it was just stuff for me. Even this started out as something just for me. But at any rate, the military structure of it has really affected the way that I write, in that I really like characters that are questioning why things are the way they are, because that's me. That's why I was a terrible soldier.
I would have been that terrible soldier too, and that's why I entertained it for very small time. I was like, I could go in the Navy and be a doctor. That would work for me because that would pay for my school. And then I thought, I don't like boats. I don't like boats at all.
That would be really rough.
Yeah.
And those boats are weirdly claustrophobic, as big as they are. So if you don't like, if you have a problem with big spaces and small spaces, you're so screwed, like on the ocean, really, in the Navy. I wouldn't. Yeah, I was in the Army. I was in the Army. I wanted to be a helicopter pilot, and my vision wasn't good enough at the time because it was 2001. LASIK was not acceptable in the military yet. So because of my poor vision, they were like, nope, but your GT score is good. Let's put you over here. I can't even remember what GT stands for, but still.
Well, what I like about your books too, so book 1 and 2 are out, correct?
That's right. Yes.
And
they're available on Amazon right now.
Okay, awesome. And we were talking beforehand, book 3 and 4 are releasing later this year.
That's right. Yeah. So I will have books 3 and 4 out by September. I would like them out sooner, but I am going slow because I do listen to good advice. I really do. Eventually. And then after that, I'll be able to focus on getting the box set ready to go. That will have a 5th installment that has short stories, an encyclopedia, maps, timelines, which are I think, very helpful in a world like this. And character art, if I didn't already say that. So there will be a lot of different things that are in the fifth book. I actually expect it'll be pretty thick.
That sounds really exciting. And that's a good idea for a box set. But also, from a reader's point of view, if they are loving these books, they cannot wait to get their hands on the next one. And a lot of readers won't start a series until it's finished.
That's right.
And I mean, like me, my books will come out one a year. So a series could take 4 or 5 years for it to be finished. And that's a long time to wait sometimes to catch those readers that are not going to start reading unless they can read every book like binge on Netflix, right?
Yep, exactly. And I am definitely that person. I'm like, when's the final book coming out? Of course, I think that also like readers like us get scarred over time, like Patrick Rothfuss. And I don't know if you've ever read Patrick Rothfuss' book, but there's entire memes dedicated to his third installment that everybody's just sitting there going, when are we going to get it, buddy? It's been like over a decade now.
That would be a lot of fun.
It's rough. It's real rough. And then of course, like George R. Martin, he had these amazing books and then he just stopped writing them and then wrote a cookbook. So I do think that there's a reason for all of us to feel a wee bit burned and a wee bit, are you sure? They canceled Firefly a little early. Are you sure?
But before we were talking, I agree with you that sometimes you do have to take a break from your characters and you need to wrap them up so they have a happy ending, because that's kind of what happened with my series. I wrapped one up, but I had a guest character, quote unquote, that then got her own world and was like a crossover series. But after finishing her story and the final release comes out this summer, I can't go back to her. Like, I will not even go back to the next generation to do anything horrible to the next generation, right? I have to come out with a different character because I can't hurt those characters anymore.
Yes.
Do you have a lot of that in your book?
Yeah. So I will say that one of the reviews I've gotten from my beta readers is just like, it is so action packed. It really is. I don't do well with like moments where people are just sitting around. I have like 1 or 2 scenes where it's like a big like consortium of people talking and it's politically driven, but otherwise I'm like, let's get it all over with now. I can't handle the rest of it. So yeah, but when it comes down to what a character can handle and how hard they have to fight before you give them that golden carrot, I do think that there must be like a statute of limitations on how much abuse you put your characters through before you're like, okay, seriously, retire, you're fine. And so I do want, by my 4th books, for my mains to be able to just settle and go live the life that they want. They dream about it, they fight for it really hard, and they struggle to even envision what that looks like. So once they finally figure all of that out, it's like, you deserve the reward. That's so much effort just to figure out what you even want in life. So yeah, I'm very much so by the end of the 4th book, my main characters and a bunch of the affiliated main characters, we're going to leave them the hell alone. We're Dunskies. Like, go have a drink. You're fine.
And they're adults now, right? They're grown up.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, and so the first book is both of them growing up also. And I will throw out there also that these are characters that they have extended lifespans. So one of the main forms of technology in the book is actually telomere boosters that were gifted to humans by an alien race. So we're being given, these technologies and these capabilities by external factors and using them as we see fit, which is very human of us to just look at telomere boosters and be like, I will live forever.
Well, yeah. And I know what a telomere is, but go ahead and tell our audience what a telomere is.
Okay, so telomeres are considered to be kind of the end caps on your DNA strands, and the stronger those telomeres are, the more youthful you are, the more stable your cellular matter is, and your DNA. Everything's more stable with a longer, extended, stronger telomere cap. And so a telomere booster in this world would be kind of a nanobot that continues to work on refreshing and keeping the telomeres at peak strength. So our characters are aging either very slowly or not at all, and have an extended lifespan. Anywhere from, the natural lifespan of humanity at this point, because of the mechanical markers, is anywhere between 200 and 250 years without alteration. But then our altered humans, they can live anywhere from, about 400 to 700 years. But it becomes very quickly obvious that the longer a human brain works and is alive and has to process the world around it, the more neural pruning happens. And over time, we find that people actually lose portions of their humanity, of their personality, their ethics, their morals. All of those things can break down over time as the brain creates neural pathways just to keep moving forward. So there is a point in time where the machine that is your brain can only take in so much information. And as you're doing that, you're breaking down something else because your capacity is just not there anymore. And this causes a lot of problems. And yeah.
Yeah, that's very interesting that what's still working is the deductive reasoning and those type of processes rather than your personality. Because it seems like as we age, like now, that what stops working is my memory. Like I can put something down and not find it for 30 minutes. But, I think my personality is still intact. So yeah, that's interesting that you kind of flipped it and did the reverse.
I did, yeah, because we've basically put ourselves into a situation where I've got, nanobots and mechanical parts that are flushing my hormones and helping me keep everything together. So everything that I do is really focused on the ability to analyze and project myself forward. And so I think that it's more or less humanity messing with itself and focusing on what it feels is important rather than what actually is important, that leads our characters into these kinds of situations. I have had one person say that my work is ageist. All right. I just wanted to say, great call out. However, everybody in the series, like that is a main character, their main story starts in Entangled Binds and they're all over 100 years old. I've evened the playing field by making sure that we don't consider humans to even be full-fledged on their own adults until they're in their late 60s and 70s, and they're not really capable of getting those higher levels of occupation until 100. So I've leveled out that playing field. So if we want to talk about ageism, that's fine, but it's not culturally appropriate for like the world we live in now, right? I think that it could be said that I'm being ageist in this series, absolutely, but I'm also being very honest about why we have to kind of be concerned about those things. When people are in power and they're 700 years old, how do we know that they're in touch with the people they're actually governing, right? Yeah, they've got all that experience, but they also might be limited by older cultural ideas and outlooks. And even though there's like a waffling, you can have like a conservative, like there's always kind of this rebellious swing. Everybody's conservative, I will swing towards the liberal side. It's a very, up and down kind of thing, but it's still cyclic. And so, and again, the older we get, can we say as we age that we're still in touch with, these larger swaths of society, or are we kind of hanging out in our own age groups with people that have those similar perspectives? I think it's very human for us to say, yeah, I'm going to hang out with people that don't annoy me.
Yes, definitely. Well, yeah, and I think there's something to be said for having friends that are older than us and younger than us, and so that we do have those different perspectives. I love my children's perspectives because they challenge me on those types of things all the time. So those are super fun.
Yeah, absolutely. I also have 2 kids, and I'm like, man, they're going to read these books and tear them to shreds one day. And they're going to be like, Mom, you didn't even consider these things. I'm like, yeah, that's when you can write your own book. I've already told my 4.5-year-old, like, you write it then. So, and I hope they will someday. We'll see. Honestly, I don't care if they do either. I'm not trying to get my kids to live vicariously through me. I'm just trying to get my own stuff done at this point.
Well, tell us where we can find you and your book.
So both all of my books are going to be originally released on Amazon through the Kindle direct publishing, all of that. But I am looking into other publication outlets. There's actually a lot of boycotting happening with Amazon and Facebook and stuff like that right now. So I am trying to make sure that it's available in other ways, especially since it's a pretty I think it's a pretty hard judgment call on totalitarianism and authoritarianism and on the idea of technocracies and meritocracies. Like we put all of these things up on pedestals and then allow for our rights. And there's like this slow trade that happens. I'm willing to give up this portion of my security and this portion of my freedom in exchange for the safety that you're offering. And so I really investigated that, but I wrote it 10 years ago. I had no idea that we would have the political situation that I didn't even know that the people that have become president since then, that would ever happen. So I do want to say it seems a little prescient. It was not intentional. I just very much so was like, already wrote it. Let's go ahead and release it. And I started doing that last year. And now I'm like, oh, I did not think this through. Yeah, but it's a
that
possibility.
happened. My pandemic book came out in 2019 and 2020 was the sequel and it didn't land right. So yeah, that happened.
It does happen though. And yeah, you don't always get the timing right, but I think everybody is always down for like just some ass kicking women. One thing I have not mentioned is that there's certain things that people have called out to me that I'm like, you just got to read and find out. But I don't use certain labels. I don't use like the LGBTQ plus labeling at all. They are there. People are present in the book. And I also don't use and when I talk about skin tone, I'm talking about exposure to radiation, period. End of. You can be a greenish gold brown color. You can be black. You can be white and glowy in the dark with kind of a purple undertone. There's all sorts of things that can happen, and they all happen in real time based on your environment. So it's like you're born a certain way, sure, but nobody's ever going to be able to say, oh, well, you were born black. Nobody will ever know because that's a hell of an assumption.
Right. I mean, this is 6,000 years in the future. So who knows what people look like, humans or partial humans at that point, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So there's parts of this that I do worry at times. Like, are we going to see, because we've seen a lot of books being banned recently. And that's been a state by state kind of case, but I'm looking at Texas like, come on, man, get it together. let's not make this a thing. But I have very, very strong female characters because again, that delineation between what men can do versus what women can do. As much as there's a control factor over women, that's more of a reproducibility factor. The government wants to be in control of how many of these people are made so they can keep track of all of them. So that's more where that restriction is coming from. It's a lot less, women. Bleh. So I do want to kind of point that out. I have a lot of very, very strong female characters and a lot of emotionally available men. Because I asked myself when I sat down, what do men want their future to look like? And I don't think men, by and large, only want to feel sexy or angry. Those are very, very rough feelings to have in your body all the time. And those are the only ones you're allowed to express. So I wanted to make sure that I gave men true freedom and really balanced things out for them. So, and hopefully that kind of pulls through in how strong my female characters are and how much they like it, how much they all just like that everybody's where they're strongest.
Yeah, it's so interesting that like, what is your like public facing persona and what is your like private facing persona based on whether you're male or female or of all of those things. So
yeah, absolutely. Cultural allowances are very, very weird. All over the world, they're very different, but it does seem like it's men that get the least amount of expression and women that get the most amount of just, express yourself, you silly little thing. So I do kind of try to really weed that out and just show, you can have a world without that in it and it looks just fine. And there's nothing weird about it, just normal.
And people are people, right? And humans are humans.
Yes, exactly. So, at any rate, I would love to go ahead and join you again in the future and tell you more. And if you have an opportunity to read it so I can answer questions, oh my gosh, I would love that. And oh my gosh, and if you have anything in there where you're like, I don't know, genetically speaking, this might not be appropriate, you let me know. I have full editing power. I will fix it. I want it to be really, really good for the box set because I know that's going to be something that's expensive for people that are readers. And I just need that part, especially to land perfect. So I'm on the lookout for everything, typos. If I said somebody's age wrong, anything that somebody picks up on, let me know. I might fix it. I might also just let it sit there.
Well, fine. This is definitely up my alley. I love sci-fi and fantasy, so I am going to pick up your book. And then hopefully in maybe September or October, when the last two release, we will have you back and we can talk about all of that.
I would love that. Trisha. Thank you so much. And it's been really nice to talk to you today. Thank you.
Yes, you too. And do you have a personal website that we can go to?
I do. Shatteredhollows.com. All one word. I do have a Facebook page that's, I think it's Shattered Hollows, and it just has my author name out to the side, M.A. Wall. It can be difficult right now. I'm working on like the search algorithms on Amazon, but if you type in Shattered Hollows, both of my books will pop up. If you type in my name, I don't know, maybe I didn't put a space on one correctly. I don't know, but I've got to fix it to where it's easier for things to pull up for people.
Well, I did find you on Goodreads, so that was good. I know you were there.
Yes.
And thank you again for coming, and we'll have you in about 6 months.
All right. Thank you, Trisha.
Bye.
Bye.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Finding the Magic podcast. I'm your host, author and podcaster Trisha Copeland, and I love getting behind the scenes. If you like the podcast, make sure to subscribe and stop in each week to discover new authors and books. Thanks for listening, and until next time, keep finding the